Beneath this jungle lie cities. And they are not small. They are not accidents. They are not isolated ruins. They are complete urban systems. Plazas, temples, causeways, and neighborhoods where thousands of people lived. For a long time, the Maya were presented as an enigma, mysterious, disappeared, lost. But the most fascinating thing about the Maya is not the mystery. It is what we know for certain, and what that knowledge reveals about human capacity. The Maya were a civilization of Mesoamerica, a cultural region encompassing southern Mexico and much of Central America. They were not a single empire like Rome. They were a network of city-states, each city with its kings, its alliances, its wars, sharing a common worldview. They built monumental cities in an environment that, for many, seemed impossible. Tropical rainforest, fragile soils, harsh, dry seasons. And yet, they developed writing, advanced mathematics, precise astronomy, and calendars that still amaze us today. But if many of their great cities were eventually abandoned, how did it all begin? Where did this form of civilization come from? And why do we now know that its origins are older than we thought? For decades, archaeology in the jungle was like investigating a building covered by a giant blanket. You could excavate one spot and guess the rest, until a game-changing tool arrived. LiDAR, a system that fires laser pulses from the air and measures the reflection to create 3D maps of the terrain, even under the trees. With LiDAR, the jungle ceases to be a wall. It becomes a transparent layer. And so, in the Mexican state of Tabasco, something unexpected appeared. A geometric shape so enormous that at first glance, it seemed part of the landscape. The place is called Aguada Phoenix, and what was found, there was no ordinary temple. It was an artificial platform approximately 1.4 kilometers long and 400 meters wide, with a height of 10 to 15 meters. Its volume is estimated at around 3.2 to 4.3 million cubic meters, even larger than the Great Pyramid of Giza in volume. And now comes the twist. Radiocarbon dating places its construction and remodeling approximately between 1050 and 700 BC. In other words, we are talking about something much earlier than the classic rise of cities like Tikal. This shatters a long-held idea that small villages appear first and only much later does monumental architecture emerge. Here, monumental structures appear early, as if the need to gather, perform rituals, and organize themselves arose before kings and palaces. Aguada Phoenix is not a stone pyramid. It is a mountain made by human hands, layers of clay and earth piled one on top of the other. Archaeologists have even described internal patterns of episodic construction, as if different groups worked on sections, and the construction effort has been estimated at millions of human labor days. Most revealing, there are no clear signs of a ruling elite in the style of other early civilizations. This suggests that, at least at this stage, the grand project may have functioned as a social glue, building together to become something new. And why build such an immense platform if not to live on it? Here, an essential pattern in the Maya world emerges: architecture as an instrument for reading the sky. At Aguada Phoenix, elements compatible with solar observation complexes have been identified, related to the Group E tradition, a design that allows tracking sunrise points and marking key moments of the year. This was not an astronomical hobby. It was about survival. In regions where rain defines life, knowing when to sow and harvest is everything. And when a society turns the sky into a calendar, something more than agriculture is born. A way of thinking about the world is born. The key word is corn. Corn not only fed Mesoamerica, it changed its history. It allows for storage, planning, and the creation of surpluses. And when there are surpluses, specialization emerges. Artisans, merchants, builders, priests, astronomers. But in the Mayan world, corn was also identity. In their tradition, humanity is born from corn, not as a pretty metaphor, but as a cultural declaration. We are people of corn. Thus, the origin of the Maya is not a sudden appearance. It is a process. Groups that settle, agriculture that is perfected, rituals that order time, and monumental projects that unite thousands. And very soon, in northern Guatemala, the jungle would conceal definitive proof of just how far this human organization could reach. A city so large that for centuries the world did not understand its scale. Before venturing into El Mirador, there's something fundamental to understand. A Mayan city wasn't like a modern city. There were no grid-patterned streets or continuous walls. It was an urban landscape integrated with nature. At its center was the main plaza, a large open space where rituals, public ceremonies, and political events took place. Around this plaza stood the most important buildings: temple pyramids, used for religious rituals, palaces, residences of the ruling elite, stelae, large stones carved with historical texts. Beyond the ceremonial core lay the residential neighborhoods, where most of the population lived. And connecting everything was a network of elevated causeways called Sakbiab, still visible today beneath the jungle. Mayan cities weren't isolated. They formed regional networks, connected by trade, alliances, and wars. In the northern lowlands of Guatemala, hidden for centuries beneath the jungle, lies El Mirador. When archaeologists began to seriously study this site, they discovered something extraordinary. El Mirador was not a modest early settlement. It was a pre-classic megacity, active roughly between 600 BC and 150 AD. Its size and density suggest a population of hundreds of thousands of people, comparable to the largest cities of the ancient world at that time. And at its center stood an unprecedented structure. The Ladanta Pyramid is one of the largest structures ever built by humankind. It is not remarkable for its height, but for its total volume, approximately 2.8 million cubic meters of material. To understand the magnitude, its volume surpasses that of the Great Pyramid of Giza in Egypt. And this raises a key question. How is it possible to build something like this without wheels, without draft animals, and without metal tools? The answer is organization. Thousands of workers coordinated over decades. Quarries, human transport routes, long-term planning. Ladanta is not just a temple. It is proof that the early Maya world had already reached an extraordinary level of social complexity. A civilization of this size needed more than rituals. It needed an efficient economy. The Maya world did not use metal coins, but it did have very clear systems of value. Some key goods were obsidian, an extremely sharp volcanic glass used for tools and weapons. Jade, a symbol of life, fertility, and power, more valuable than gold. Cacao, used both as a ritual beverage and as a unit of exchange. Markets were the nerve centers of the city. There, food, pottery, textiles, tools, and exotic products brought from distant regions were traded. This trade connected cities hundreds of kilometers apart, creating a true interregional economy. Most Maya people did not live in palaces or temples. They lived in simple houses made of wood, mud, and thatched roofs. They grew their own food, raised animals, and participated in community rituals. something surprising to the modern mind. Many Maya buried their dead under the floor of their homes. Ancestors were not separate from the living. They were part of the household. Family, lineage, and ancestral memory were fundamental pillars of Maya identity. Women played a central role in daily life, maintaining the home, preparing corn, transmitting domestic traditions and rituals. Spirituality was not confined to temples. It was present in every daily activity. In what is now El Salvador, a tragic event became a gift for archaeology. A volcanic eruption buried a small Mayan community around the 6th century AD. The inhabitants fled. No one died there, but time stood still. Joya de Seren preserves homes, gardens, utensils, and tools just as they were on the day of the eruption. Thanks to this site, we know what ordinary Maya people ate, how they organized their gardens, what a typical house looked like. It is not a site for elites. It is a portrait of everyday life. For centuries, the system worked. Agriculture produced surpluses. Cities grew. The population increased. But each pyramid required wood to produce lime. Each urban expansion meant deforestation. Success slowly sowed the seeds of a future crisis. And as cities continued to grow, the balance between society and the environment began to strain. To understand the Maya, we must begin with a crucial decision. They decided to write. Not all ancient civilizations did, and among those that did, very few developed a system as complex and complete as the Maya. For centuries, it was believed that Mayan glyphs were merely symbolic drawings. Today, we know that this is false. The Mayan writing system combined logograms, which represent complete words, syllabic signs, which represent sounds. This allowed them to write any idea in their language, proper names, exact dates, verbs, abstract concepts. The Maya wrote history. They recorded births, coronations, wars, alliances, rituals, and deaths. Each stela was a historical document, a stone transformed into an archive. But stone wasn't the only medium for knowledge. The Maya wrote thousands of books called codices, made from bark paper coated with lime and painted with great precision. These books contained astronomical tables, ritual calendars, instructions for ceremonies, royal genealogies. They were portable libraries of knowledge. After the arrival of the Europeans, most of these books were destroyed. Only 4 codices have survived to this day. What was lost wasn't just art, it was science, history, and collective memory. To record time and the sky, the Maya needed numbers. Their mathematical system was vigesimal, based on the number 20, probably because they counted on their fingers and toes. They used only 3 symbols. A dot equals 1, a bar equals 5, a shell equals 0. And here we find one of their greatest achievements: 0. The Maya were one of the first civilizations in the world to develop and use a functional symbol for 0. This allowed for complex calculations and extremely precise timekeeping. While it would take centuries for 0 to be accepted in Europe, in Mesoamerica it was already an everyday tool. For the Maya, astronomy wasn't an intellectual pursuit, it was a necessity. They observed the movement of the sun, the moon, Venus, and other celestial bodies for generations. Without telescopes, without optical instruments, only with patient observation and written records. They knew how to predict eclipses. They calculated the cycles of Venus with great precision. They detected patterns that repeated themselves over time. The sky was a text that had to be read correctly. The Maya didn't use just one calendar. They used several at once. First, the Hab, a 365-day solar calendar, similar to ours. It served to organize the agricultural year. Then, the Solkin, a 260-day ritual calendar, formed by the combination of 13 numbers and 20-day names. Each date had a specific spiritual significance. Both calendars were combined into a larger 52-year cycle, known as the calendar round. And to record long-term historical dates, they used the long count, capable of measuring thousands of years without resetting. This system did not predict the end of the world. It recorded the passage of time on a cosmic scale. For the Maya, time was not linear. It was cyclical. The universe was divided into 3 planes: the sky, the human world, the underworld, called Xibalba. These planes were connected by a cosmic axis, symbolized by the sacred ceiba tree. The passage of time activated energies. It opened and closed cycles. Choosing the right day was essential. A mistake could disrupt the balance of the world. At the center of this worldview were the gods. They were not distant figures. They were active forces. The duty of the rulers was to maintain the balance between gods and humans. That is why they performed public rituals, including self-sacrifice. Blood was not punishment. It was vital energy. Offering blood meant feeding the gods so that the world would continue to function. For centuries, this system sustained the Maya civilization, but it depended on something fragile, on the sky responding, on the rain coming, on the corn growing. And when that stopped happening, everything began to fall apart. For centuries, the Maya cities spoke through stone. Each stela recorded dates, names of kings, military victories, and rituals. But at the end of the 8th century, something unsettling happened. The inscriptions began to disappear. The stelae ceased to be erected. The temples were no longer renovated. It wasn't a sudden destruction. It was an interruption, as if an entire civilization stopped writing its history. This archaeological silence is one of the first signs of the collapse of the classic Maya world. To understand the crisis, we must understand how Maya power functioned. The Maya world was not unified under an emperor. It was a mosaic of independent city-states. Each city had its own ruler, its own dynasty, its own territory. These cities formed alliances, traded, and waged war against each other. For a long time, warfare was limited and ritualized. It served to capture prisoners, assert prestige, and readjust political balances. But from the 8th century onward, something changes. Wars become more frequent, longer, more destructive. Competition for resources, trade routes, and prestige intensifies. The power of the Mayan rulers was not based solely on military strength. It was based on a fundamental idea. The king was the mediator between the gods and humans. His legitimacy depended on his ability to guarantee rain, ensure good harvests, maintain cosmic order. As long as the system worked, no one questioned it. But when the harvests began to fail, when the rain stopped coming, the question became inevitable. If the king speaks with the gods, why do the gods no longer respond? For decades, it was debated whether climate played a real role in the Mayan collapse. Today, thanks to paleoclimatic studies, we know with greater certainty. Analysis of lake sediments, stalagmites, soil cores shows that prolonged and repeated droughts occurred between the 8th and 9th centuries. In some regions, rainfall decreased by as much as 40 or 50%. In a territory without large, permanent rivers, dependent on seasonal rains, this was devastating. Less rain meant less corn, smaller surpluses, more social tensions. On the Yucatan Peninsula, water doesn't flow on the surface. It hides underground. Cenotes were natural wells that connected to subterranean water systems. For the Maya, they weren't just water resources. They were sacred places, gateways to the underworld, abodes of the rain god. When the drought worsened, the rituals intensified. First, material offerings, then jade objects. Later, human sacrifices, even children. Not as an act of gratuitous cruelty, but as a last attempt to restore cosmic balance. The collapse of the classic Maya world wasn't a sudden apocalypse. It was a process, a combination of factors: prolonged droughts, soil depletion, constant warfare, a crisis of political legitimacy. Cities began to depopulate. The elites lost power. The administrative systems disintegrated. But here, it's crucial to understand something. The Maya didn't disappear. They abandoned cities, not their identity. The collapse was the end of a form of organization, not the end of a people. For centuries, one idea was repeated time and again: that the Maya disappeared. The cities were covered by the jungle. The temples crumbled. The inscriptions ceased. For many outside observers, that could only mean one thing: the end of a people. But that conclusion is wrong. What collapsed was a very specific urban, political, and ritual system. Not a culture, not an identity, not a population. After the collapse of the classic Maya world, many communities abandoned the great cities of the South. But they didn't remain stagnant. They migrated. They reorganized. They adapted. In the northern Yucatan Peninsula, new centers of power emerged during the post-classic period. Cities like Chichen Itza, Uxmal, and Mayapan show a Maya world transformed, not destroyed. These cities combined ancient Mayan traditions with new influences, the result of exchange with other Mesoamerican peoples. The Mayan world was never the same again, but it remained Mayan. In the 16th century, another event radically changed the destiny of the Mayan world: the arrival of the Europeans. It wasn't just a military conquest, it was a clash of worlds. New diseases arrived, new power structures, new religions. Codices were destroyed, temples were dismantled. A new historical narrative was imposed. But even in the face of this rupture, Mayan culture did not die out. Today, more than 6 million people in Mexico and Central America speak Mayan languages. They cultivate corn using ancestral techniques. They consult ritual calendars. They honor their ancestors. Mayan history didn't survive only on ancient stones. It survived through oral tradition, in daily life, in collective memory. For many present-day Mayan communities, time remains cyclical. Corn remains sacred, and the past continues to dialogue with the present. The Maya observed the sky for over 2,000 years to understand the Earth. They invented ways of measuring time that still amaze mathematicians and astronomers today. They developed sustainable agricultural systems, complex writing, and a worldview where everything was connected. Their history reminds us of something essential, that no civilization is eternal, but that adaptation, memory, and identity can survive, even collapse. Beneath this jungle lie cities, but above all, lie a people who never ceased to exist.